Okay, so continuing on from the previous lesson, I'm going to show you some additional features that we're going to be building on this rig. So here I have the hip bone selected. So if I rotate the hip, you can see the legs will follow wherever the hip goes. We can tell the legs to not do that by simply turning off that feature. So now when we rotate the hips, the legs will stay separate from its movements. And over here, if we want to move the leg, you can simply click on the thigh, click on the shin, click on the foot, and click on the toes. Now I'm going to go back over here and show you some additional features. So as you saw that when we click on the chest bone and rotate it, you can see that the arms and the head are stuck to the chest bone. So to give us much more natural movements, we can simply go to the arm, and like before, turn off the feature where the arms will not follow the chest, and on the head we can turn it off so it stays independent. So now when I move the chest bone, you'll see that it gives us a much more fluid, natural movement. You can see this a lot better from the side view. Now if we focus in on the head, like before, we can click on the jawbone. But here we can tell the jawbone to have limits. So if I open up this jaw and make it go up, you can see that we can stop it from driving itself into the upper lip. Same thing for going all the way down. If you look at it from the front, you can see that we don't have to think about where the jaw should lock. We can control how much it can move. And now for the tongue, we can bring it down to one single bone. We can rotate the tongue and we can curl the tongue. If you look at it from the side view, we can even bring out the tongue from the mouth. Now I'm going to turn on the original 80 bones to show you that with rigging you can actually tell bones to stretch to give you additional natural looking movements. Now let's take a look at the arm over here. So here we can click on the upper arm bone. And now when we click on this, notice that when we rotate it, we can limit the movement to just one axis. So we don't have to think about how to move the forearm. And now if we look at the hand, we can rotate the hand in any way that we want. We can come onto the fingers and rotate individual fingers. We can automate the process of the curling of the fingers, or we can simply click on each individual bone and rotate it any way that we want to. Additionally, we can also add this palm bone to give us that extra movement of the curling of the palm when we're creating wrists. So everything that I've shown you so far here is what is called an FK rig. So to help you understand this, here I'm just going to make the head follow, make the arms follow the chest. So what an FK rig is, what it basically means that you have to do counter animations to create your realistic human figure movements. So as an example, if I just go to the right view and rotate the chest a little bit over here, then here I'm just going to rotate the head, okay? Now if I rotate the chest again, you can see that the head is following the chest. So now I have to do counter animation to bring the head up. So this is what an FK rig is, right? These are the qualities of an FK rig, which is forward kinematics. So this would be true for the arms, basically any part of the human figure over here. So to help us to not think about counter animation, we can add functionalities like this on the head to not follow the chest. So now when we rotate the chest, you can see that the head stays in place, meaning that it's doing the counter animation for us. Now, the other type of feature that we can add to our figure is what is called an IK rig, which is inverse kinematics. So to help you see what that is, here I'm just going to go to where the legs are. So if I click on this bone over here for the thigh, here I'm just going to put this leg in this position. Rotate the thigh, rotate the shin, rotate the foot, and then rotate the toe. So here I have to click 1, 2, 3, 4 bones. Now if I click on the hip bone and rotate it, to do counter animation, I now have to bring the thigh up, bring the shin up, and roll the foot a little bit over here and the toes. So imagine that this was on a floor, okay? So with an IK rig, it can actually do this automatically for us. So what this means is that if I click on this bone and turn on the inverse kinematics or the IK rig, you'll see that when I just move this bone, it will automatically do the movement of the thigh and the shin for us. So not only that, but when I let this go over here and now click on the hip, and when I rotate the hip, you can see that the foot stays in exactly the same position for the IK rig. And I can move the figure. You can see that it's doing the counter animation for the thigh and the shin automatically for us. Now the other cool feature of IK rigs is that, let's say if I rotate the foot, we can also automate the foot roll. This again is only possible with these type of rigging systems. So you can see how this is actually working internally. Now over here, if I click on this and go back to the FK rig, you'll see that the leg will now automatically snap to the FK bones. So now if I click on this FK, I can just rotate the foot or the whole leg like this. Now if I go back and click on this and turn it on, you'll see how it jumps between these two rigging systems. So if I turn back on the mechanical bones, you can see how it's actually working internally. And here we can still move the IK rig. We can position it anywhere that we want. And the foot will automatically just jump to its new position. Just going to go ahead and reset that. Okay. Now the other feature of the IK rig is that when we turn this on and move the leg, we can also control where the knee points by simply clicking on its pole target. So over here, I can simply rotate this. Coming on the foot and rotate the foot anywhere we want. Now, if we compare this with the FK rig, if we wanted to create the same position like this, we would have to click on the thigh bone for the right leg over here, click on the shin, the foot, the toes. Now from the front, if we want the knee to point in kind of like the same direction, in its opposite direction on the FK, we can simply click on this and rotate on the y-axis and then simply place it in position. So you can see we can use two different systems to create our animations. Now if I actually go back to the IK rig to show you that if I want to let's say position this IK leg to the FK leg, all I have to do is just move this over here very quickly and adjust the foot roll. But I didn't have to figure out how to do the thigh and the shin. So it depends on which type of rig that you want to use, depending on your situation. So here I'm just going to reset everything over here and go ahead and turn this off. Now if you look at the arm, we can also do the same thing. So here again, if we rotate the arm like this using the FK rig, now we can click over here and turn on the IK. You can see that how it jumps to the IK rig. So now if we simply move the hand, you can see that the forearm and the upper arm will automatically move for us. And again, it will have its own pole target to position the elbow. And the hand will of course just be FK, but you can make anything IK. So here, let me just go ahead and turn that off and just reset everything over here. Okay, so these are the features that we're going to have on our rig. Now what I'm going to show you are some additional things. In order to create realistic human figure movements, we can add additional functionalities. For example, if we want to rotate this arm, here we can just rotate on the y-axis. But notice that when I rotate, how the bicep is moving, and look at how the deltoid is behaving, this shoulder over here. We can control this again with these rigging systems. So if I click on this, you can actually see how this is working. Notice that how this bone is moving and this bone is moving just a little bit to give us this realistic human figure movement. So the same is going to be true for the hand. This bone moves and this bone moves just a little bit. We can also see this on the leg over here. See that when I click on the FK foot and rotate it on the z-axis, this bone will move to give us just a little extra movement in this area over here. I'll do it from the back so you can see this. See how this bone is moving? So it's these types of features that you can add throughout your figure to give you that extra functionality for realistic human figure movements. Okay, so after we have completed this stage where we've completely rigged our character, if I turn everything on, you're going to see how it's going to look. Now, if I actually turn all the relationship lines, all the axes and all the names, this is what it's going to be looking like when we are working in developing this rig. It's going to look pretty complicated. But Blender gives you the option to turn off some of these features, so it's not so confusing to look at. We can turn off relationship lines, we can turn off the names for the bones, and we can turn off all the axes for the bones. Right, so you can see that over here, these are our original 80 bones. This is going to be our root bone. If I turn off the shape, you can see what it is. These are going to be our mechanical bones that will drive our deform bones. And then to simplify everything, we're just going to have a few bones to allow us to animate our character. So once you've completed this step, the question is, well, how do we test this character, right? How do we test it with good animations? So one way we can do this is by using Unity's game engine, which is a free download. You can get the Unity's personal free edition. So if I switch over here to Unity, you can see that we can load up our figure into the Unity game engine. And the cool thing about Unity is that it can read blend files directly. So here it's basically loaded up our figure, and then we can tell Unity to use its mechanism system, which will use motion capture data, to simply test out our figure, meaning that we can use the Unity game engine to see how we are doing with our rig. So if I click on play, you can see that we can utilize their motion capture data to see how our figure will look with realistic human figure animation. Now, what you need to keep in mind is that video game engines use a slightly different rigging system. They're not going to care about those intermediate bones for the bicep and the forearm. Basically, it's kind of going to move like a stick. And over here for the thigh and the shin, you can see how this is behaving. So it's going to look slightly a little odd because when you're using the rig for motion capture data, it does not care about all the different bones that you have. But it's a good system to at least test out your animations. So if you wanted to create much more realistic animations, you would do them in Blender, and then you can of course import your blend file into Unity and just use it as a generic type figure. So here I'm just going to show you some additional animations over here. You see that this is it's just rolling over here. So you'll see a bit oddities in the animation. This is because, as I said, it's not going to use the full rig, but here you can actually slow it down to just check how you did with your rigging. To speed it up, really slow it down, and zoom in. And here is a much more complex animation where he's going to use a backflip. And over here, I use this animation quite a bit just to check how the back muscles are working. Now notice what's going to happen over here. See, it's going to behave a little differently is because it's not using all the bones. So this is a step we're going to do at the very end. Okay, so I will see you in the next lesson where we will start this journey of understanding how to create our rig. Thank you.